My relatives gave me a gift-wrapped mirror for Christmas that was shattered filthy and covered with marker writing that said failure, useless, disappointment, and freak. "There's no point in pretending anymore," my uncle remarked, thrusting it into my hands. "This is your true self." For their group chat, my relatives took a video of my face. "Perhaps you'll change now," my mother remarked with a giggle. In disdain, my father just shook his head. They toasted during dinner for finally expressing what everyone had been thinking. May he vanish, as he ought to have done years ago. I waited, swallowing my anger and pride. They pleaded with me to cease this morning. "You can't. We are related." Christmas last year was already strange, as if I sensed it before I had even gotten out of bed. I'm not sure how to describe it, but you can tell when someone is attempting to appear regular, yet is acting strange. Despite his own lack of effort, my cousin Ellis continued sending me the most ridiculous memes via SMS. My dad was checking his phone every 2 seconds, and my mom was helping with breakfast but didn't look at me. There was no group conversation. Not even Lola, who practically likes to brag on Instagram about her considerate presents, mentioned Secret Santa. Well, perhaps they're finally past the roast Roy cliché, I guess. Or perhaps they're simply worn out. Being the odd one out is nothing new to me, but this was just a bit too much. In the kitchen, I heard Ellis muttering something to my Uncle William. They both gave me a quick look before pretending they didn't hear me. It was simply strange. After breakfast, we always do gifts, and it's generally a flurry of activity with paper all over the place and people attempting to shout at each other. It became silent this time. My mother essentially directed the entire event, instructing everyone to sit in a circle, something we've never done. For example, are we now in a cult? Hope is the only one who doesn't completely despise me, and we sat next to each other. Or perhaps she's simply skilled at acting. She also pushed me with her knee, but she refused to give me a glance. I'm already on it then. Naturally, with all eyes on me, I opened my present last. This is the box, but it's hefty, uncomfortable. I guess I'm anticipating a joke or a half-hearted apology for what transpired on Thanksgiving. A long tale. Dad basically lost his temper over nothing and accused me of being the reason the turkey was dry. It's just a mirror when I open the packaging, even if I didn't prepare it. Even a brand new mirror is broken. It is covered in dust and fingerprints. Someone is using a marker in a crazy way. There are unflattering words everywhere. Failure, useless, crazy, disappointment. You understand. It isn't even ingenious. It's simply plain cruel. Uncle William gets up and thrusts it in my direction, like a rock. He seemed to want it to shatter more. He gives off the impression that we can finally stop acting. He speaks nearly word for word. There's no need in pretending anymore. This is your true self. Ellis and Lola, meantime, are both holding up their phones without even concealing them. And I am well aware of what is happening. They are filming my face for their group chat, most likely with their university pals. My mother chuckles. She isn't even trying to hide it. Suggests that you could finally change today. My dad mutters something about being embarrassed to even look at me and simply shakes his head. When Hope attempts to speak, my mother just looks down at her and stops talking. I carefully set down the mirror and go to my feet, but my uncle gets in the way. "Sit down," he says. "Don't spoil it for anybody." I promise that I probably would have begun swinging if I had been a bit younger. However, I'm not a moron. I merely hold on to the chair as I sit with my hands on my lap. I already know that debating is pointless. As usual, they will simply turn it back on me. Since I was a child, things have always been this way. I'm held responsible for everything. The one that isn't appropriate. Not as athletic as Alice. Like Lola, not attractive enough. Too silent, too strange, too gentle. My mother has always been angry. No matter what that entails, I wouldn't just act normal. My dad is simply worn out. I suppose Dad used to try, but he simply stopped caring about me once Grandma passed away. The Christmas meal was a farce. This false toast was done by all of them. I would want to finally express what everyone has been considering. May he vanish, as he ought to have done years ago. William chuckled. Alice attempted to give him a high five. My mother merely grinned. I skipped meals. Hope was selecting her meal. She looked at me as if she wanted to apologize, but she refrained. Nobody did. I just sat there looking at my phone as if I might actually vanish if I looked closely enough. I went upstairs after supper and attempted to call a friend, but he was preoccupied with his own family. They were laughing about something downstairs, and I could hear it. Most likely me. I simply sat on my bed and gazed at that stupid mirror. The marker simply smeared when I tried to wipe it off. That's what irritates me. It's not even a novel idea. Like they've always made me the target. Every family event, it's the same thing. Roy's too sensitive. Roy's not trying hard enough. Roy is a burden. When I got into a fight at school, it was my fault for not fitting in. When I quit soccer, I was wasting Dad's money. When I got sick last year, they barely visited. My mom said it before that I was the problem child. The reason she and Dad fight, the reason she can't relax. Uncle William's always been the worst. Acting like he's some big authority on what a real man should be, but he's just loud. Listen, Lola, follow his lead because it's easier to pile on than to get picked on. So yeah, I was angry. Like not just mad, but this deep crawling feeling that I wanted to break something, but I didn't. I just sat there thinking. I kept replaying it in my head. The way they all looked at me waiting for me to cry or flip out so they could call me unstable. I swear, I almost did. Hope came up after a while. Tried to knock, but I told her to leave me alone. I didn't want her pity. Not now. I thought about just leaving, walking out and not coming back. But that's what they want. They want me gone so they can blame me for ruining Christmas and not feel bad about it. I'm not giving them that. After everyone had fallen asleep, I went downstairs late. The mirror remained exactly where I had left it, as if it were a danger. I simply wrote on the back using a Sharpie that I took out of the kitchen drawer. Well done. I then placed it in the restroom so that everyone would see it first thing in the morning, unable to fall asleep. Simply lay there trying not to think while scrolling through TikTok and watching pointless videos. I heard my parents fighting in their room at around 3. Hushed but forceful voices. A few times caught my name. Next morning, nothing new. It was a tense breakfast. Lola refused to give me a look. Ellis was boasting about winning a wager, pretending nothing had occurred. Mom only produced enough eggs for her and her father. I just sat at the table and stared at them while I made toast. There was no mention of the mirror. Not initially. Uncle William then enters notices and slams the bathroom door. Everyone leaps. When he returns, he tells my dad that I can't ruin another holiday. Dad simply shrugs. Mom gives an eye roll. Hope doesn't say anything, but she looks angry. That's Christmas then. I'm not even surprised yet. I'm not just taking it, though. I've had enough of being the target. They won't change, so I'm not waiting for them to. I will cause them to regret it, and I'm not talking about some pathetic payback. If they wish to witness my true abilities. All right, let me show them. Even if they label me a freak, I don't mind. Superior to a doormat. The next update will be available soon. You're not prepared for what I have in store for you. One update. So let's get started. Section 2. I refused to simply sit there and accept it. Yes, I did receive DMs from some of you saying, "Bro, just go, no contact. LOL. For not after the mirror, though I'm not making it that simple. Not after seeing my mother grin at me from the other side of the table as if she had finally triumphed. One bad day isn't even the point. It's the accumulation of years of this nonsense. In any case, go check out part 1 if you missed it. Since, hey, this isn't a healing arc. The house felt strange after Christmas. It was tense in every room, not just the usual awkward. Since Hope is the only person who has ever sort of supported me, it was terrible that she kept avoiding eye contact. When my mom was trying to make a point, she would talk to Lola in her fake, sweet voice while slamming cabinet doors and being extremely loud. My dad went into hiding in the garage while pretending to be occupied with an old toolbox, not even feigning interest in joining us for dinner. Ellis constantly had his phone out playing videos for anyone who would listen as he bounced between his rooms in the living room. My Uncle William insisted on taking center stage in every conversation. discussing tough love and real men. I would require surgery if I rolled my eyes anymore. The thing is this, my family didn't suddenly decide that I was the issue. It has always been this way. However, after my grandma passed away a few years ago, it intensified. To be honest, she was the only person who genuinely liked me. My mother became more cruel after that. My dad simply gave up and everyone else followed suit. Ellison, my uncle, used to say that I was soft, but I'm not into sports or anything. Lola claims that I'm embarrassing to be around because she is so preoccupied with how she looks and I don't care. My mother simply wants a typical son that is one who doesn't criticize her for being phony around other people. So yes, I was finished. I began to make no plans that would get me arrested or violate the law, but items that will truly cause them discomfort. Retaliation, like in a movie, wasn't what I wanted. I wanted their small world to be upended and to experience what it's like to be the outsider. I began by saying things I knew would irritate them. I began by reading through the family group chats, not the primary one. I'm barely in there anyway, but the smaller ones that Ellis and Lola used to talk about family drama. I found a way in not hacking her. Just remembered Lola's old phone passcode. She never changes it. She's lazy like that. While she was taking a shower, her phone was resting on the kitchen counter. I came across the video of me opening the mirror while scrolling through her group. Yes, it was there, along with all of their brief remarks. In addition to one of Lola's friends from her summer vacation in Europe, Ella forwarded it to at least 3 other friends. They were all giggling and letting go of the custom. "It's unbelievable what your family did." Remarks. In reality, though, none of her pals were standing up for me. Just rumors. I took screenshots of everything so I wouldn't post it online. I'm not a moron. I am aware of how that works. However, to possess receipts, I began giving clues during breakfast. Just things like that, nothing overt. It's funny how individuals reveal their true selves in private conversations. Ellis turned pale. Despite her best efforts to remain calm, Lola began gripping her phone as if I might take it. When she saw me, my mother gave me that look. "Stop making waves," it says. I paid her no attention. I began using things I knew would irritate them in my responses to every stupid thing they said. I reminded Ellis loud enough for his father and uncle to hear that he lost money last year when he bet with his friend Marley and still owes him about $50 after he boasted about some fantasy football victory. I inquired as to whether Lola would disclose her secret credit card to her mother when she began discussing her future plans with her boyfriend. She went red in the face, froze, and rushed upstairs, slamming the door. She disregarded my dad when he yelled at her to show more deference. I sensed that the atmosphere was changing. I was no longer the only one being singled out. Hope began spending more time with me, but she remained quiet and kept asking questions like what was actually happening. I just informed her that I would no longer be used as a target. She didn't push it, she just nodded. Dinner was the next step. Uncle William began one of his tirades about the need for people to become more resilient, and nobody was given preferential treatment in my day. It must be nice to live in the past when people like him could get away with anything, I said, laughing. He slammed his fist down on the table, lost his temper, and told me to be more respectful. Respect must be earned, I said, not merely because you shout louder than the others. I should apologize, my mother told me. Maybe she should apologize for allowing her brother to treat everyone like trash, I told her. She told me to stop talking and gave the table a hard slap. I did nothing but sit there. Ellis attempted to push back my chair as though I should get up and go. I got up and advised him to give it another go. He didn't. After that, things became more heated. My mother began searching through my belongings for proof that I was involved in any kind of activity. When I asked her what she was doing, she told me she was searching for contraband in the drawer of my desk. Correct. As if I were concealing an entire drug ring within a stack of high school notebooks. She told me to leave her sight and slammed my door. I then began striking them in the most painful spots. Cash. Not illegally, but by making public things they hoped would remain secret. Lola has been shopping online with her father's credit card. Just before Dad went to check his email, I left her browser history open on the family laptop. He discovered charges he didn't recognize and about $300. Let's start shouting. Lola attempted to place the blame on me, but I told Dad to look at the shipping address. Yes, he did. Indeed, it was all given to her. While claiming to be saving for a new phone, Ellis has been taking out loans from Uncle William. I made sure Aunt Noelle, who is genuinely wealthy and constantly criticizes everyone, was present when I made that mistake during lunch. She began questioning Ellis about responsibility and money. He became enraged, stomped off, and threw his fork at his plate. I shrugged and told Uncle William that perhaps he should focus more on his own child instead of blaming me. My mother began to panic. People's perceptions of us are her obsession. Hope, who's usually quiet, began to push back a little, asking why I'm always blamed and why everyone acts as though I'm invisible. Mom snapped. She took Hope by the arm, pulled her into the hallway, and began to scream. Hope withdrew, instructed her to stop acting like a child. The door was slammed by Mom. Little things began to change, I noticed. As if he didn't want anyone to hear him, Dad began answering calls in the driveway. Lola was probably trying to find out how much I knew by blowing up her group chat. Ellis had become quieter and less arrogant, merely pouting in his chamber. When things became tense, Uncle William would make excuses to run errands and was less present. Suddenly, Aunt Noel was observing everyone as if she were waiting for someone to make a mistake. To be honest, I was just getting started. All right, if they wanted to play games. However, I had had enough of being hit alone. I began to determine who was actually in charge of what around the house by keeping notes and receipts, just waiting and watching nothing dramatic. My mother then called a family meeting 2 days after Christmas. She was just shouting at everyone at once, but she tried to make it sound official. I interrupted her as she began to question me about loyalty to family and respect. Told her maybe she should look in the mirror for once. She slapped my arm hard and told me to get out. I stood up, looked at everyone, and said, if they want to keep playing, I'll play harder. Then I left the room that night. I started making real moves, not petty stuff. Actual pressure. I started poking at the stuff they care about most, their social standing, their money, their secrets. I had no intention of slowing down. I wanted them to understand what it's like to constantly be on edge and never know what will happen next. The next update will be released shortly. Angel, things are going to get much messier. Update 2. So this is where stuff really started to shift. Like, have you ever had the feeling that everyone else is crazy or that you're overreacting? After Christmas, that was essentially every hour at my parents' house. I kept my head down, but the more I observed an uncle, the more I wanted to play tricks on them. It's real pressure stuff that hits the spot, not pranks or anything. I had had enough of being the joke. Something was up, and that was the first clue. Lola seemed to be changing the lock screen on her phone every day. Strange, generic photos instead of her typical hot girl selfies. She would glance at me and then at her phone, next at Mom. I became aware of her growing paranoia. I had discovered more than just her credit card secrets. I wasn't going to tell her that she was correct. Ellis, on the other hand, had given up boasting and was merely skulking around starting arguments over nothing. Every time there was money, my uncle became busy, as if he was aware that his own mess was going to be made public. As if they wanted to play dirty, I began to push more. All right, Lola's obsession with appearance is why I started with her. Hey, maybe you should check who's looking at your stories. I texted her from an unidentified random number. Everyone isn't a fan. In a panic, she began to lock down her social media accounts, unfollow users, and send her friends all-caps texts. Mom became strangely involved, asking if I was bothering her and who she was speaking to. I didn't respond at all. I just told Lola that perhaps she should pay more attention to who is paying her bills and less attention to her phone. She stomped upstairs after flinging her charger against the wall, referred to me as insane, and then I began to prod Ellis. Although he constantly brags about being his father's mini-me, the man is incapable of handling stress. During dinner, I began to hint, "Oh, I hope you paid your friend back." It would be awful if Dad knew. He began yelling at me and telling me to keep my mouth shut. Dad inquired as to what was happening. "I was trying to create drama," Ellis said. I simply shrugged, suggested that he check his Venmo notifications. When I walked past Ellis in the hallway, he first pouted and then attempted to push me. I told him to stop touching me and pushed back. He referred to me as a freak. I made fun of him. When I discovered that Mom was still attempting to steer the conversation, the real fun began. In order to see how challenging I am, she convened another family meeting, this time via FaceTime with Aunt Noelle. Mom began with her typical tirade, claiming that I was ruining everything and that family is about respect. I interrupted her, stated that perhaps she should stop bringing up me behind my back if family is that important. After a moment of silence, she told me to apologize. What did I say for no longer serving as the family's punching bag? Uncle William tried to interrupt me, so I suggested that before offering advice, he might want to concentrate on his own financial situation. Aunt Noelle remained silent as she gazed at her screen. Dad rose and walked out of the room. Later, I began doing things that would make them uneasy not only at home but also in public. I knew Lola was desperate to look flawless because she was organizing a large gathering with her friends at the house. I promised my mother that same evening I would invite a few of my friends over. She said it would ruin the mood and freaked out, told me no. "Okay," I replied. But then I left a message for Marley, Lola's friend. "Lola hasn't told you everything, but you should ask her about her other socials." Lola learned. Yell at me in the corridor, attempted to slap me. She nearly stumbled over her own shoes as I ducked. Mom snapped, told me to leave. "Kick me out," I said. "Watch how you explain that to everyone after that." I began looking into the financial aspects in the interim. Dad was already tense over Lola's accusations, but he was unaware of Ellis, borrowing from both Mom and Uncle William. I made a note of every penny I knew they owed people. No drama, just the facts, and it was left on the kitchen table. Dad found it the following morning. Began questioning everyone. I just told Mom and she tried to accuse me of spying. "Perhaps you would be aware of what's happening if you spoke to each other." Dad hit the counter with his mug. Lola broke down in tears. Ellis bounded out. Uncle William sent Dad a lengthy tirade via text. Dad just switched his phone off. When this happened, Hope became involved. Although she has always been the quiet one, she began to advocate for herself more and asked her mother why she always yelled at me when everyone else was lying. Mom advised her to avoid getting involved. Hope expressed her fatigue with the drama. Her mother attempted to ground her. "You can't ground me for telling the truth," Hope said with a laugh. Mom shut the door behind her. After that, Dad fell asleep on the couch. I noticed the fissures developing. I received a text from Aunt Noelle asking how I was doing. "Yeah, nothing new, just family stuff," I replied. I told her because she persisted in pressing. "Mom might be able to tell you about the family savings." Before I know it, Mom is screaming at Dad over who told Noel. My dad is shouting at me. I simply shrugged and took a stroll. New Year's was the last straw. The plan was for everyone to get together for dinner at this dull restaurant, but Dad abruptly left, claimed to have other ideas. Mom said I was to blame, claimed that I was destroying the family. I chuckled and suggested that she might want to express gratitude to me for exposing the truth to everyone. Lola wouldn't come out of her room. In the basement, Ellis was hiding. Uncle William tried to convince everyone that he was the victim while he was on speaker. Mom was sitting on the edge of my bed when I woke up the following morning. She appeared worn out, like exhausted. "Can't we just return to normal?" she said. "After what you did, there is no normal," I informed her. She told me to get over myself and slapped my arm. "You wanted me to vanish," I told her as I got up. "Perhaps I ought to." She slammed the door so forcefully that the frame shook as she rushed out. "It has been anarchy ever since," Lola's companions are inquiring. "Money is driving Ellis crazy. Dad hardly talks to anyone." Hope began going to her friend's house more frequently. Suddenly, Aunt Noelle is looking over the family's finances. In essence, Uncle William is a persona non grata. Although Mom is still making an effort to maintain appearances, she is now the one who is being scrutinized for family matters. I haven't finished yet. They desired for me to be the oddball, the letdown, the failure. All right, for once, let's see how they respond to being in the hot seat. Be assured that it will only get heavier in the upcoming update, the last update. To be honest, I was initially unaware of how quiet the house became. Not the usual like, that heavy but awkward. We can't fix something that's broken. Keep quiet. The sound of each door increased. Instead of speaking to each other, people began texting. In case you were wondering, yes, I still called that place home. I still couldn't afford a place of my own. And I kind of enjoyed getting in their face after all of this. Everyone seems tense immediately after the new year. When Dad does get home, he's wearing headphones and browsing through his phone as if he's watching sports, but he's not even responding to the screen. Lola keeps crying and locking herself in the bathroom with her phone, but then she posts cheesy, aesthetically pleasing stories as though her life is ideal. Ellis simply disappears most days. It's likely that he's hiding at Marley's house once more, playing video games all night or something. Mom is spending a lot of time cleaning things that don't require group chats with Aunt Noelle, hoping that someone will actually want to talk. I'm not sorry, but everyone is wary. None of them have apologized in the least. This is where things start to get crazy. Suddenly, Aunt Noelle began to check in frequently. For example, sending texts to Hope and me to check on us, as well as to parents and even Lola. She was obviously keeping an eye out for rumors while simultaneously making sure her money was secure. She has always been the family's helper, but never for free. I began giving her clues. Nothing phony, just things like perhaps you ought to look into the family's finances, or perhaps Lola's credit card is once more maxed out. After responding with a ton of question marks, she would call her mother and start a heated argument. I simply watched them all scurry while I sat back. Mom said I was causing trouble. I tried to persuade my father to support her, but he simply shrugged and said, "Perhaps we wouldn't be here if you all stopped lying to each other." Lola slammed her door so forcefully that a picture frame fell out, freaked out at Mom, and claimed she never asked for this. Ellis yelled at me when he got home, accusing me of ruining everything, but I simply laughed and told him to pay back his debt before continuing. He attempted to push me. I refused to back down and told him that I was no longer afraid of him. "I'm a snake," he muttered as he retreated. The money was the main factor that caused it to spiral. Aunt Noelle began to insist on seeing how things progressed. Mom continued to conceal things, but now nobody trusted anyone. She couldn't even check the banking app on Dad's phone. Everyone knew that Lola had simply reused her password, so she attempted to accuse me of hacking her stuff. Hope began to stay out late. Like she's not coming home, she texts me. There is too much drama. "I understand," I told her. Uncle William even ceased to appear. His texts shifted from boasting to pleading with others to exercise common sense. I didn't respond. The chat in the family group exploded. Mom was accused by Aunt Noelle of mishandling the family's finances. Mom lost it when she threatened to remove her support from the house after Dad told her to calm down. She was shouting at Lola, at Dad, and at me. Even when she eventually returned home, it was at Hope. Hope lost her temper, slammed her own door, and told Mom to stop pretending she was the only victim. Hope avoided Mom's attempt to slap her and left the house once more, returning only late. Lola's entire circle of friends began to fall apart in the meantime. Word must have gotten out about her double life and spending. Some of them stopped following her. She became very upset, accusing me of ruining her social life. "You did that yourself," I told her. Her water bottle cracked when she threw it against the wall. She made a mess, so Mom scolded her. After retaliating with a scream, Lola sobbed and locked herself in her room. Ellis made an effort to appear superior, but Aunt Noelle confronted him about his debt. He promised to pay. She promised to inform Uncle William. He simply left and didn't return for several hours. At last, Dad gave in and informed Mom that he was done cleaning up her mess. He began sleeping at a friend's house and would hardly speak when he returned home. Mom persisted in attempting to guilt-trip me by accusing me of destroying the family. "You guys did that yourselves years ago," I informed her. She attempted to strike me. Telling her to stop touching me, I grabbed her by the wrist. I simply left and went to the backyard when she began to cry. I simply persisted in pressing. I began relocating some of my belongings to the garage, made it clear that I was considering renting rooms, chatting about it via text in front of Mom. She began to panic, accusing me of being ungrateful and saying I couldn't just leave that family. I informed her that you called me a freak and gave me a mirror. What were your expectations? She left after slamming the refrigerator door. Then the pleading began. From Mom and even Aunt Noelle, but not from Lola or Ellis. Mom began sending me constant texts that said things like, "You can't do this. We are related. You must halt. Everything is being ruined by you." I informed her that I was doing nothing. You did not initiate. In an attempt to sound reasonable, Aunt Noel asked me to help resolve the conflict. Instead of blaming me, I suggested that you all get together and have a conversation for once. She became enraged, claimed that I was being unkind. The irony is that none of this was fulfilling. Not at all. I didn't feel any better, even though they were all at last handling their own problems. It seemed necessary. I had no desire to fix it. I wanted them to experience what they had caused me. They were too. Mom was a complete mess. Dad was examined. Lola was becoming less social. Ellis was humiliated and broken. Aunt Noelle was also trying to control the damage to her finances. Hope stopped acting like there was any use in making amends because Uncle William was avoiding everyone. People inquire as to my regrets. I don't. I wasn't going to allow them to paint me as the bad guy just for being alive. I gave them a war because they were looking for a scapegoat. I ensured every lie and every secret. Every phony smile they employed against me backfired. I didn't violate any laws. I didn't destroy their belongings. They couldn't blame me for anything. I simply stopped being polite and began applying my knowledge. I told Mom the last time she attempted to play the strange family card. "What you did is not what family does." She attempted to give me a hug. I took a step back and walked out of the house. I waited until after midnight to return from the park where I sat and watched videos on my phone. The house was eerily quiet when I eventually entered. No one even gave me a glance. I'm still here for the time being, but I'm no longer a part of their story. I get to choose what happens next, and they get to live with what they did. No broken things need to be fixed, no need endings. I simply ensured that they could no longer pretend. In case you're questioning whether it was worthwhile, it was far, even if they remain the same. At least they are aware that I will never again be their doormat. And to be honest, that's sufficient. Story 2. My parents and golden child brother called me family embarrassment after I paid their mortgage. So I smiled, coldly, vanished, and the bombshell I dropped at Mom's birthday party shattered everything. Okay, so this is one of those things that's been sitting in my drafts forever. But after what happened last night, I just need to get it out there, BC. Honestly, I feel like I'm losing my mind a little, and I want to know if I'm the crazy one or if this is actually as nuts as it feels. Warning, this is going to be long and pretty messy. I'm literally typing this out on my phone while my phone is buzzing from group texts I'm ignoring. So yeah, sorry in advance. So I don't know how to start this except to say it didn't feel like a big moment at first. It started with a weird comment from my mom, which is honestly not new, but still. We're sitting at lunch. Just me, my mom, my dad, and my brother. Boing. He's younger than me by like 2 years, but acts like he's 10 years older, if that makes sense. She says real casual. Something about how it's nice that I'm finally pulling my weight around here. I didn't even know what to say. BC, like, what does that even mean? I've literally been the one handling all the stuff for their house for the past 3 years, ever since my dad's health went off a cliff and everything started falling apart. I paid off their mortgage last year. I didn't even tell most people that just my parents and Bone knew, and I only did it because the bank kept sending those red letters and my dad was acting like nothing was wrong. Anyway, the weirdness at lunch just keeps building. But when he's sitting there scrolling his phone, barely talking to anyone. But every time he does open his mouth, it's to mention some new thing he's working on, like he's the CEO of something. But I swear, he hasn't had a real job in years. My parents eat it up though, and every time I say something, even just normal stuff, there's this kind of fake smile from my dad, and my mom just changes the subject. I know I'm not the most exciting person, but it's like they're going out of their way to make me feel like I'm just background noise. So fast forward to a few weeks later. My mom's birthday is coming up. My family is one of those that makes a big deal out of birthdays, but only for certain people. Like if it's Bowen's birthday, it's a huge dinner. Expensive cake. Tons of people. If it's mine, it's usually pizza and a store-bought cake. And my mom saying we shouldn't make a fuss. So for hers, obviously it's a whole thing. 3 days of group texts, my dad calling me to make sure I can contribute. Which is hilarious, BC, I'm still paying for half their bills and they act like it's just expected. I say, yeah, whatever, I'll be there. I even go in on the group gift Boeing picked, which is weirdly expensive for someone who never seems to have money, but I just Venmo him and move on. The day before the party, I stopped by the house to drop off some stuff. I walk in and I hear my parents talking in the kitchen. They didn't hear me come in, BC. I still have a key, and I guess they weren't expecting me so early. My mom is saying something about how it's embarrassing how Crew turned out, all things considered. Yes, my name is Crew. Don't ask. It's a family thing. My dad goes, well, maybe he wouldn't be such a disappointment if he'd listened to us more. Then my mom says, at least Bowen's not a burden. I just stood there in the hallway holding this box of cheap wine I got for the party. Like, what am I even doing here? I almost just left, but I made a noise on purpose so they'd know I was there. Then walked into the kitchen and set the box down. They acted totally normal, like nothing happened. My mom even smiled and said thanks for bringing the wine. I was so thrown off, I just said I had to go and left all night. I'm thinking about it like, am I actually the family embarrassment? I know I'm not flashy. I'm not posting about my life online. I don't have a million businesses like Boeing, but damn. I'm not a criminal. I don't do drugs. I paid off their mortgage. What else do they want? I texted my friend Ivy about it, and she just said parents can be blind sometimes, but honestly, that didn't really help. I barely slept. So, party day, I show up early, BC. I always end up being the one who has to set up chairs and hang up balloons and do all the dumb little chores no one else wants to do. Bo and shows up late, of course, and when he walks in, my parents act like the Pope just rolled through the door. My mom hugs him for like a full minute. I'm just standing there holding a platter of cheese from the grocery store, which I know no one will eat, BC. Everyone's on some new diet they saw on TikTok. The whole night is just weird. My parents basically ignore me, except when they want me to refill drinks or take Cokes. Bowen is telling some story about a huge deal. He's closing soon. Everyone's nodding along. I tried to join in once, and my dad cut me off to ask if I could make myself useful and help Grandma with her coat. I do it, BC. What else am I supposed to do? Every time I sit down, someone finds an errand. At one point, Bo and actually snaps at me for hovering when I was literally just standing there. I think he pushed my arm. Not hard, but just enough to be like, move. When it's time for the cake, my mom makes a toast. She thanks everyone for coming, talks about how grateful she is for her supportive family. She looks right at Bo and says she's proud of the man he's become. She doesn't even look at me. I think I laughed. Not on purpose, just one of those weird sounds you make when you can't believe what's happening. Then BC, I'm an idiot. I try to bring up the mortgage thing, not to brag, just BC. I was feeling defensive and tired and honestly a little desperate to get some kind of acknowledgement. I mentioned that I'm glad I could help out last year, and my dad just looks annoyed. My mom sighs and says, well, not everyone needs to make a show of things. Bo and pipes up that maybe I only did it BC, I couldn't make it on my own. And he actually laughs. My dad says, yeah, it's not like you're successful in any real way. crew. I just sat there staring at all three of them. I don't even remember what I was holding, but I know I put it down probably too hard because someone's glass tipped over and the tablecloth got wet. No one moved to clean it up, Bo. And looked like he wanted to say something else, but I just stood up and looked at him. Then at my parents, I think I smiled. Not BC, I was happy, but BC, I couldn't think of anything else to do. I said, "Okay, got it." Then I walked out. I heard my mom call my name, but I didn't stop. Someone slammed the door behind me. Not sure who. I stood in the driveway for like a full minute, just breathing. My phone buzzed, group chat lighting up with people asking where I went. I didn't answer. I got in my car and drove away. No idea where I was even going, just not there. So yeah, that was last night. I haven't answered any texts. I haven't checked my email. I keep thinking about that moment in the kitchen about how they talked about me when they thought I couldn't hear. I keep replaying the look on Boeing's face when I left, like he was proud of himself for winning something. I know this is already long, but I guess the reason I'm posting is BC, I'm done playing along. I'm not going to be the background guy anymore. Not after all that. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I know it's not going to be what they expect. If you've read this far, thanks. I don't even know what I want advice or just someone to say I'm not nuts. Anyway, I'll update if anything else happens. But yeah, I think things are about to get real different around here. Update 1. So this is part 2, and honestly, it's wilder than I expected, BC. I thought I'd just feel weird for a while and it would blow over. But no. Turns out if you actually stand up for yourself and my family stuff gets weird fast. Also, thanks for the reply. Some DMs I read all of them, even the unhinged ones. Appreciate it. I'm still not answering my family's messages, though. Can't do it. Not yet. So after I left that birthday thing, I just disappeared. Not literally. I still had to go to work and buy groceries and whatever, but I started ignoring every text call from my parents, and Boeing muted the group chat, didn't open Facebook, didn't even check my mail for a bit. At first it felt kind of fake, like I was playing some dumb game. But after 3 days with nothing but silence from me, they started to panic. I got a string of texts from my mom about how we're family. You can't just run off after an argument. My dad called twice, left a voicemail that was just heavy breathing and then him hanging up. Classic. That was the first week. Week 2 is when the real panic set in. I guess they thought if they ignored what happened, I'd just show up like normal and fix all their stuff again. But I didn't. I stopped doing everything. No more running errands, no more random Zelle transfers for just a little short this month. Texts, nothing. I checked the app and realized their utilities were getting close to shut off. BC, I'd been auto-paying a bunch of it, so I stopped that too. It felt weird, NGL, like I was pressing a big red button, but mostly I felt numb. I don't know. Here's where it starts getting actually real. I get a call from Boeing at like 2 a.m. on a Thursday. I don't answer, obviously, but he leaves a voicemail. That's just him yelling about how mom is losing it because the Wi-Fi is out in the lawn, hasn't been mowed, and she can't watch her shows. He says it's my fault for abandoning family responsibility. Like what I'm not the groundskeeper. I don't call back. He sends a string of texts with like 10 question marks in a row, then nothing. Next weekend, I stopped by the house, not to see them, but BC, I still technically own the place. Long story, but when I paid off the mortgage, the deed went in my name, BC. My dad's credit was trashed and they needed my help. So yeah, it's legally mine. I changed the locks, didn't even feel guilty about it. Just did it. Left a note in the mailbox that said if they wanted to talk, they could text me like adults. My mom sent me a photo of the front door with a sad face emoji. My dad called and just hung up again. Couple days later, Bo and shows up at my apartment. I live like 20 minutes away, so it's not hard for him to find me, but he just stands outside ringing the buzzer for 10 minutes straight. I finally go down. Not BC, I want to talk, but because I don't need my neighbors thinking I'm running some weird family cult upstairs. He starts in on this whole thing about how I'm being dramatic, how I'm ruining everything, and how mom is crying all the time. He tries to push past me to get inside, but I block the door. He actually shoves me. Not super hard, but enough to get my back up. I told him to leave. He goes, "You're pathetic." "Crew, you're just jealous. You always have been. I said you're not moving back into my place ever." He called me a loser and walked off, slamming the door. After that, things get petty. My parents start posting vague stuff on Facebook like some people don't know how to be grateful. And family is everything until it isn't. I get text from my Aunt Mildred asking if I'm okay. BC, she saw something about a rift in the family and wants to know if I'm sick or something. I just text back, "I'm fine, don't worry," and leave it at that. I don't want to drag anyone else into this. Then the bills start piling up. Since I stopped paying, the house starts to fall apart. My mom texts me a photo of the lawn, like, "Look at this mess," as if I'm supposed to drive over and mow it. My dad calls, asking if I can spot him a few hundred for groceries. Beau and tries to Venmo request me for shared family expenses. I decline it. He sends another one this time with a note that says, "Don't be a jerk." I decline again. Now, here's the thing. I'm not rich. I had some savings, and paying off their mortgage basically wiped me out. But I built back a bit over the last year. I'm not living in luxury, but I'm also not about to get sucked into their mess again. I started looking at the numbers and realized I'd been carrying them for way longer than I wanted to admit. Every time they called, it was for help, never to check on me or say thanks. My parents never even acknowledged the mortgage thing except to say it was the least I could do. So I start doing little things that make it clear I'm not just on strike. I'm done. I called the insurance company and switched all the mail to come to my address. I changed the Wi-Fi password. It's in my name, BC. Of course it is. I even canceled the lawn service, which, yeah, may be a little petty, but honestly, I was sick of paying for stuff that no one ever thanked me for. I get an email from my mom that just says, "Why are you doing this?" I ignore it. But when tries to get smart and shows up at the house with some of his friends trying to move into the guest room, my dad lets him in. But when he tries to unlock the door, the new key doesn't work. I get a call from Beau yelling that I'm locking him out of his own house. I remind him it's not his house, it's mine. He calls me a psycho and hangs up. An hour later, my mom calls. Sobbing, says I'm tearing the family apart, that I'm embarrassing them in front of the neighbors. I just hang up. Then it gets really weird. I get a letter from the city about overdue property taxes. I've been paying them out of habit, but after everything, I just stopped. I figured my parents would handle it. But no, they just ignored it like everything else. Beau and text me says the city sent someone over to look at the house, and now my mom is freaking out BC. She thinks they're going to get evicted. I tell them the taxes need to be paid, and I'm not doing it anymore. He says I'm a selfish jerk and that I'm destroying our childhood home. I say maybe you should have thought of that before you called me an embarrassment. Meanwhile, my group chat with Ivy and some other friends is blowing up with memes and dumb stuff, but I notice Ivy starts asking more questions about my family. She says, "Are you okay for real?" I say, "Yeah, just tired," but she's not buying it. She says, "You know, they'll never change, right?" I say, "I know it's not about changing them. It's about not letting them drag me down anymore." Then last night, my mom calls again. This time I answer BC, I'm tired of the drama. She starts off calm, says she wants to talk, that she's worried about the family. Then she starts getting worked up. Says I'm being cruel, that I need to think about what I'm doing. I say, "I'm just treating you the way you treated me." She says, "You're being vindictive." I said, "Maybe I am." She hangs up. 5 minutes later, I get a text from my dad saying I'm banned from Sunday dinner until I get my act together. I laugh. BC, I haven't been to Sunday dinner in 3 months. Now here's the kicker. I hear from a neighbor who I actually like BC, he's normal, and mind his business, that my parents are talking about having some kind of family intervention. Apparently, they're planning to get everyone together at the house and confront me like that'll fix anything. He says they're trying to get the family lawyer involved, which is hilarious, BC. There is nothing to fix. It's all in my name. I thank him for the heads up and change the alarm code on the house bow, and tries to text me that he's coming over to settle things I ignore. So now I'm just waiting. I've got cameras set up at the house again, all in my name, BC. No one else could figure out how to install them. I'm not scared, just tired. I'm done being the family punching bag. They wanted me to disappear, so fine. I'll disappear. but I'm not going to make it easy for them. Next up, they try to come after me for what's theirs. But I'm not rolling over. I've got receipts, literally, and otherwise. We'll see how they like it. When the embarrassment is on them, we'll update again soon. Buckle up. Update 2. So not even kidding. Every day since the last post has felt like the world's dumbest reality show. And I'm not even on the good streaming package. I guess I always thought there would be a low point and then things would chill out. But nope. Every time I think I've seen the peak of family weirdness, they find a new level. Not sure if this is normal for anyone else, but at this point, I'm just rolling with it. Documenting every little thing because yeah, I'm absolutely done being the quiet one. And honestly, it's kind of fun watching people panic when you stop playing your part. First clue that things were about to get extra beau and start showing up at the house. More and more like he's suddenly got some big plan. I drive by to check the mail and there's his car in the driveway, sometimes with his friend Raven, sometimes alone. One day I catch him out front just standing there on his phone like he's waiting for something. I roll down the window, ask what he needs, and he just shrugs and says he's checking on things. I say, cool, I'll be inside if you need anything. He follows me in, tries to act casual, but he keeps looking around like he's measuring the place. Next day, I get a text from my mom saying she's concerned about valuables disappearing. She wants to know if I've sold anything without telling them. I just reply everything in the house that's not personal belongs to the owner, right? She ignores that. Not even subtle. So here's what I actually did. I started going through the house and clearing out all the extra junk that no one ever uses. Old sports gear, some random collectibles my dad's been hoarding, a second fridge from the garage that's been unplugged for a year. All the stuff that's not sentimental, not personal, but would sell for something. I list them online. Nothing flashy, just enough to get them out of the way. But one notices right away. He texts demanding to know where the family stuff went. I tell him if he wants to keep something, he can buy it at the listed price like everyone else. He loses it, starts sending me voice notes, and at one point he actually shows up and tries to take the boxes out of my car. I block him and tell him to back off. He tries to push past me. I push him back. He yells at me. I shut the door. After that, he starts slamming doors every time he leaves like it's his new thing. My dad calls and tells me I'm disrespecting the family legacy. I ask him what legacy exactly, since everything in this house was almost repaired until I stepped in. He hangs up. Next day, I see Mildred, the aunt who always wants to know everyone's business, has posted on Facebook asking if anyone knows a good moving company. I know that's about my parents because she tags my mom and then deletes it later. Now the family friends start getting involved, which is honestly worse than the family. My mom tells people at her book club that I've lost it and I'm ruining her golden year. I get a call from Doris, who's basically my mom's oldest friend, and she tries this whole soft approach like, "Crew, your mom is really upset. Can't you just patch things up?" I tell her the basics, that I own the house, that I paid off everything, and I'm not running a hotel for freeloaders anymore. Doris says, "Well, that's not what I heard. And you know people are talking." I say, "Let them talk." But when starts getting really desperate, he tries to organize some kind of family. Sit down without me. Like they all meet at Mildred's to plan how to get me to see reason. My cousin Evie texted me from the other room during this and says they're talking about you like you're the villain in a soap opera. I tell them to send me an invite next time. She just laughs. Then comes the money. My dad calls and says if I'm selling things, he wants his share. I tell him there is no share since he signed everything over to me when I paid the mortgage. He tries to say that wasn't the deal. I tell him I have the paperwork. He says, "You're being cruel, Crew. You're embarrassing us." I say, "Yeah, I heard that already." He hangs up though and tries to get legal. He actually shows up at my place with a stack of printed out Google Docs. Not kidding. Just stuff he found online, and says he's within his rights to claim a piece of the house. I ask him where he got his law degree. He says it's common sense. I tell him to get out before I call the actual lawyer. He tries to slap the papers onto my coffee table but misses. I hand him the real documents signed and notarized and say read those. He storms out, slams the door so hard the neighbor's dog starts barking. Now it's getting awkward for my parents. A couple neighbors come by to ask if everything's okay since the yard looks like a mess and there's random people coming and going. My mom tells them she's just tired and that her ungrateful son is putting her through a lot. I see one of the neighbors roll his eyes as he walks away. I get texts from my old high school friend asking if my parents are moving. I just send the shrug emoji. Meanwhile, I'm working on the next step. I call a realtor, start getting quotes. I don't tell my parents yet, just want to know what I'm working with. I'm not rich, like I said before, but I'm not stupid either. I know if I sell, they're out. I see Bowing at the house again. This time he's with Raven, and they're arguing about something in the driveway. Raven sees me and says, "Is this your circus crew?" I just say, "Nope, not anymore." Then I get a call from the city about the property taxes again. Apparently, my dad tried to pay with a bounced check and now there's a late fee. I pay it just to keep things from getting worse. But I don't tell anyone. I start keeping a running total in a spreadsheet. Every dollar, every repair, every call. I'm not going to let anyone say I did nothing, not after this. The final push comes when my mom tries to throw a last-minute family dinner and doesn't invite me. I find out because I've posted a photo on Snapchat and I see everyone there. Even distant cousins I haven't seen in years. Bowing is at the head of the table. My dad's making a toast. My mom is laughing. I don't get mad. I just feel done. So I text the family group chat, I say. Just a heads up. The house is going up for sale. You have 60 days. My mom calls crying. She says I can't do this, that I'm breaking her heart. Bo and tries to threaten me, says he'll fight it. I say good luck. My dad just texts, "You'll regret this." I don't answer. That's where it sits right now. I've got the paperwork ready, the realtor lined up, and every expense tracked. I'm not hiding anymore. It's not about revenge. It's about finally being done. They wanted to make me the embarrassment. Now they get to explain to everyone why they're moving out. Next up, Mom's birthday. And I'm not skipping this one. Update soon, final update. So here we go. This is the part where things finally actually broke open. For real. I'm still kind of in shock at how it played out, but honestly, I don't regret a single step. People keep asking what my end game is, and the truth is, I just wanted them to feel it for once. Not just a little discomfort or some awkwardness, but the full, actual reality of what they've done. And yeah, I made sure everyone saw it. Mom's birthday, this time around, was weird. Not, oh, ha ha ha. Family drama. Weird. But like the whole vibe was off before I even got there. I heard from Ivy that they'd been trying to keep it low-key, mostly immediate family, and a couple of the usual hangers-on. But for some reason, Mildred started inviting extra people. Apparently my mom didn't want me there. Told people she wasn't sure if crew would show, like I hadn't been at every single birthday for the last 15 years, cleaning up after everyone and pretending not to hear the digs. I didn't say anything, just waited. So the invite comes through, group text style like always. I don't respond, but I already know I'm going. I told the realtor to prep the paperwork and set everything up to finalize soon. I grabbed all the receipts, bills, legal docs, the whole file, just tossed it in a manila folder like I was going to jury duty. I also brought the one thing my parents never expected: copies for anyone who wanted to see them. When I show up, Bowing is standing out front looking like he hasn't slept in a week, just scrolling his phone and ignoring everyone. I walk past him. He barely looks at me inside the house. It's way more packed than usual. Like Mildred went full Facebook blast and dragged every distant relative in the zip code. I spot Raven in the kitchen, already half drunk, and Doris hovering by the snack table. My mom sees me and her face does this weird twitch like she's not sure if she's supposed to be mad or fake happy, she says. "So you decided to come after all?" I just say yeah. Figured I'd see the place one last time. The whole first hour is just tense people making small talk. My dad acting like he's hosting the Oscars, but nobody's actually relaxed. I catch bits and pieces of people whispering about the house situation and how Crew's been acting strange. Bo. And keeps trying to corner me, but then backs off when he sees I'm not in the mood. At one point, my mom starts talking to a cousin about how hard it's been keeping the family together lately. like I'm not standing 10 feet away. Then it's cake time, and I swear it's like everyone is waiting for something to explode. My mom gives this whole speech about family and support. Thanks everyone for being there. Starts crying a little. Which honestly she does every year now, so no one even blinks. She makes a big deal about how no matter what, family always comes through for each other. And some people forget what's really important. Bo and jumps in to say how proud he is to be part of this family, even when not everyone appreciates what they have. If you've ever wanted to see a group eye roll, you should have been there. So I let them finish. Then I just walk up with the folder. I don't raise my voice, don't do any dramatic movie stuff. Just put the folder down on the table and say, since we're all here, maybe we should all be clear on who's really been supporting who. I start pulling out receipts, laying them out one by one. Mortgage payoff, electric bills, repairs, property taxes. Every single time I covered for them, documented down to the date and dollar. I even printed out the deed with my name on it, highlighted. The room goes dead silent. You can hear the fridge humming. My mom tries to laugh it off, says I'm being theatrical that nobody wants to talk about money on her birthday. I say no problem. We can talk about honesty instead. I tell everyone straight up that the house is being sold, that they all have 60 days. Actually, it's more like 45 now to figure out what they're going to do. I point out that every time they called me an embarrassment, every time they took a shot at me behind my back or to my face, it was while I was literally saving them from losing everything. Bowen starts shouting, says I'm lying, that I'm trying to ruin the family's reputation. I hand him a copy of the legal docs, all signed and notarized. He tries to slap them out of my hand, but I don't let go. He pushes me. I push him back. And for a second, it looks like he's going to swing, but Raven steps in and pulls him away. My dad tries to yell over everyone, says it's not fair that I'm being vindictive. I just tell him I'm being honest, which is more than anyone else has done for years. Doris starts asking questions, actually reads the paperwork, and you can see her face go from shocked to pissed as she realizes I'm not making any of it up. Mildred starts whispering to people that maybe there's more to the story than anyone said. My mom slams the bathroom door and stays in there for like 10 minutes. The best part. The realtor shows up halfway through the party, clipboard in hand. I told her to stop by just to get some measurements and drop off the sale sign. She walks in, does her thing, barely glances at the chaos. A couple of the older relatives ask her what's going on, and she just says the house is on the market as of today. My mom comes out of the bathroom, sees the sign, and loses it, starts shouting that I'm destroying everything and that she won't forgive me for this. I tell her she already made her choice. Bow and storms out, slamming the front door so hard one of the picture frames falls off the wall. My dad is sitting on the couch with his head in his hands. People start leaving, but not before grabbing copies of the paperwork. Mildred pulls me aside and says, "You know, I always knew something was off, but I guess I didn't realize how far it went." I just nod. I'm not interested in explanations or apologies. I don't even stick around for cake. I leave the party with the biggest weight off my back. I don't look back. I don't answer any calls. I see a bunch of Facebook posts the next day, some angry, some confused, some people pretending they don't know what happened. I get a text from Ivy that just says you did it. So yeah, I guess this is the ending. Or at least the start of something new. They wanted to make me the family embarrassment, and now they get to clean up their own mess in front of everyone who ever believed their story. I'm not sorry. I'm just done. If you got this far, thanks for sticking with it. No big lessons or forgiveness arcs. Just the truth. Sometimes you have to let people burn their own bridges and watch from the other side. Story 3. The same individuals who stole the insurance money for my life-saving surgery also purchased a luxurious SUV for my sister during my parents' retirement celebration. My mother declared that spending money on this useless son was our biggest financial error. And my dad added, "He is a failure who is 30 years old and still requests handouts." My sister laughed. Beggars are at least dignified. He is merely a pitiful person who subsists on family charity. I stood up with confidence, laughed loudly, and said, "Family charity? What do you mean by the pension fund that I have been overseeing?" It's gone. That evening, I disclosed how I would slowly drain everything, wire it offshore, and leave them in ruins using the complete legal access they had granted me. They believed they were retiring wealthy, haha. I suppose I should begin by stating that although I don't usually share such things, I'm genuinely amazed by how crazy my family got this past weekend. Now, as I sit here eating a cold leftover burger, I'm wondering if anyone will truly understand why I did what I did, or if I'm going to get flamed for posting this. Anyway, let's get started. This isn't some sort of karma grab. All I have to do is get it out. I must first explain the strange atmosphere at my parents' house these days, which is strange even for us. I don't know if my parents, Sherry and Silvio, have always been terrible parents, but they're certainly not the worst. Bella, my sister, is 3 years my junior. They're fave, always. It's not even subtle that she's the kind of person who will ask for petrol money while simultaneously telling you that she's generating abundance. And they devour it, I promise. My parents are retiring, which is the problem. They have a huge party at their house, which is really a little dilapidated for how much they boast, but they don't even go to a restaurant or anything, and invited a few neighbors in addition to half the family. As soon as I arrive, Bella's brand new SUV is parked in the driveway like it's the honored guest. My former room is now closed. My dad hardly glances up from his phone when I go in, and there's no explanation, it's just locked, which is new. Tells me to get drinks from the garage and grunts. You know it's simply strange, even if I wasn't anticipating a red carpet. I arrived early because Sherry mentioned that they wanted assistance setting up. But as I enter the kitchen, she is merely standing there, hardly speaking to me and checking to see sure Bella's vegan cheese is in the refrigerator. She simply shrugs and says she hopes I don't cause a disturbance tonight, whatever that means. I try to strike up a conversation and inquire how she's feeling about the retirement issue. It's strange, but I just laugh it off. The party begins to fill up. Aunt Loretta and Uncle Tony. I hardly know my neighbors and a couple of cousins. Sherry is playing a playlist and is constantly reminding people that Bella is going to have a better life now that she has a new automobile and that retirement is all about enjoying what you create. Every time I pass Silvio, he just keeps topping off his glass and making these small jabs. For example, you might get knowledge about ambition. Heath, every sound is merely background noise. However, I'm experiencing that old queasy feeling. The one when I'm aware of an impending event. I should clarify that tensions are not limited to families. I became ill when I was 19, like a hospital, not a cold. I'm sick. Surgery was required and the insurance money arrived. It was meant to pay the bills. It vanished. I'm not a moron. When I inquired about it, they stated it was for the family and that I would eventually understand. Bella then started sharing selfies with her new automobile a few months later. And after the bills, I can't afford food, so I'm eating ramen. They never say they're sorry. I pretended that I was being dramatic by bringing it up as if it were commonplace. In any case, I made an effort to ignore it, yet it persists. Such as this topic that is never discussed. Everyone is aware that I left as soon as I could, yet they continued to try to entice me back, particularly with money from family. Since you're so adept at things online, Heath, they requested me to assist in managing their pension fund a year ago. All right, I completed all the papers and set up the accounts. With technology, they are both worthless. It's really crazy. To be honest, I was aware that they would never check it for themselves. All they wanted to do was boast about having a family manager for their office. So let's fast forward to this celebration. The food is gone. People are becoming inebriated. Bella has already made 2 live appearances on Instagram showcasing the SUV. At this point, Sherry begins tapping her glass. I have a feeling that a speech is on the horizon. She calls everyone in and begins discussing sacrifice and legacy while I'm trying to avoid being in the way by the patio doors. She just goes for it, but I can hardly hear her. Our biggest financial error, she admits, was squandering money on a son who never achieved anything. Dead quiet. People glance at their feet after glancing at me. Silvio interrupts and claims that I'm a failure in my 30s who still begs for help, and I can actually hear someone coughing in the rear. Bella chuckles and remarks, "At least beggars have dignity," without even waiting. He is a pitiful person who subsists on family charity. They seem to have practiced it, I promise. Aunt Loretta is looking at her drink as if she wants to vanish. I'm not even ashamed of it. I'm furious, like my brain just flicked the switch at this very moment. I burst out laughing, not pretending to laugh, but laughing aloud. Everyone thinks I've lost it, and I most likely have. I approach, get a drink, take my time, and just say, family, altruism. What do you mean by the pension fund that I have been overseeing? It's gone. 2 yards away, you could actually hear the neighbor's dog barking. It became that quiet. Sherry stares at me as though I've just given her a slap. Silvio drops his glass so forcefully that it spills. Bella's mouth falls open. I simply continue. I propose you put your future in my hands. Perhaps you ought to have considered who you were defrauding before giving them the password. Whispering begins. Nobody is sure what to do. Uncle Tony makes an effort to hide it. Heath claims he's only kidding. Correct. However, I shake my head and give him a direct look. Initially directed at me, Sherry then yells at Silvio Bella and then back to me. In fact, she reaches for my arm, but I resist. Silvio simply shouts for everyone to go. Bella then slams the restroom door after pushing past me. I don't really care, but I assume someone dropped their phone while attempting to record it. Still clutching my drink, I go out to the backyard and stand there for a moment. I hear Silvio shouting about attorneys and Sherry sobbing inside. Bella is yelling into her phone at someone. I should feel sorry for myself, but I don't. I'm at this point because I feel like I finally done something that for once truly mattered. Although I didn't anticipate ruining the party, I'm willing to play the bad guy if that's what they want. Next actions. I can tell you this, but to be honest, I'm not sure yet. There will be no restful night's sleep for anyone in that house. And I have only just begun. Must I continue to update? I don't know if it matters, but I have days' worth of receipts. Update 1. As you may already be aware if you read my first piece, I threw a fit at my parents' retirement celebration and revealed the truth about the pension fund. After that, I assumed I would sleep like a baby, but I should have realized the real drama was just beginning. Here's what transpired when I wandered out back with my drink and nuked the mood. To be honest, I assumed they would all simply stew and continue to ignore me. Until the next family event, anyway. However, I completely misjudged how quickly these individuals may change course. You didn't matter to us until you destroyed everything. On the guest bed, I collapsed. Why they let me is still a mystery to me. I slept for approximately 2 hours until I woke up to this strange, wet-sounding knock on the door, possibly due to habit. Not even daylight was present. At first, I thought it was the cat, but it was actually Silvio screaming and hammering with the side of his fist, telling me to get up and correct what I had done. Sherry started in 2 minutes, so I got up after ignoring him for about 5 minutes. To be honest, I thought Bella would have left by then, but she wasn't. Her eyes were red, and she kept sniffing in a way that sounded like she was about to start a fight and a TikTok all at once, while she was in the kitchen reading through her phone and pretending nothing had occurred. Silvio is already standing by the refrigerator with his arms crossed when I go in, and Sherry is holding one of those old photo books, presumably in the hopes that I will become emotional or something. She begins her statement by saying that I owe this family everything that they always gave it their all, and that I am being selfish and ungrateful. I simply let her go and take a seat at the table. You used to love your family, Heath, she says as she opens the book and begins to turn the pages, pointing to photos of me as a child. What took place? And all I do is look at her. I immediately shove the album back when she pushes it in my direction. Silvio raises his voice and threatens to kick me out if I don't put this right in an attempt to play the tough man. He simply repeats himself louder, as if turning up the volume will make the money return, when I ask him what he believes correct even means. He continues by saying that I robbed their future, and that he will call certain people to make things right. He can call anybody he wants, I told him, but without me they couldn't access anything because the accounts are locked down. Bella continues, maybe I'll be homeless at last like I threatened when I was 19 and I just ignored her, as she looks up from her phone. Sherry raises her voice and asks, After everything they did for me, am I really going to let them lose everything? She gives me a look like she's ready to hit me when I tell her straight out that all they did for me was steal from me when I was at my lowest. She pushes the record off the table and slams it shut. After slamming the refrigerator door, Silvio storms out into his man cave, the garage. I'm aware that he won't be returning anytime soon. At last, Bella looks me in the eye and asks whether I really care that I'm destroying lives. I tell her that fixing what they broke is not my responsibility. I'll regret this, she adds, scoffing and calling me a parasite. She snatches her keys and shuts the door behind her. Her SUV leaves the driveway and I hear it. It's just Sherry and me now. She sits there looking at me as if she's waiting for me to lose it, but she's not sobbing. I don't. I take my phone out and launch the banking app. I won't reveal which, but you are all familiar with the icon's appearance. Additionally, I show her each and every password change, withdrawal, and transfer. She keeps attempting to catch me as I scroll through, as if I might have overlooked something. Although there is a miraculous undo button, it does not exist. I inform her that you granted me complete access. You approved each paper. I didn't break any laws. Simply put, you were too indifferent to check. You believed me to be weak, therefore you trusted me. She rises, approaches, and makes a real attempt to slap me. I take her hand away and get to my feet. She claims that no one will ever love me, that I destroyed her life, and that I will always be a letdown. I tell her that even if she's broke, she may say whatever she wants. She slams the door to her bedroom and storms out. I take a moment to sit there and simply browse through my phone while I collect my breath. Just to be regular, I share a few memes in a group chat with my buddies. My phone then begins to explode. First, Aunt Loretta is messaging me to tell me to call right away. Uncle Tony came next, followed by Cousin Charlotte. I don't respond to any of them. In the hallway, I observe Sherry using the phone, most likely to contact Bella and later her sister. I hear her saying things like, "Heath has ruined everything, he's dangerous, and he's gone crazy." Silvio returns and hurls a set of keys at the wall in the meanwhile. "I'm going to call the police," he says. "Go ahead," I say to him. "I'll hold off." He pauses, turns to face me, and inquires as to if this is reimbursement for the insurance funds. It's not payback, I tell him. It's fairness. He simply nods his head and leaves toward the garage without responding. The door to the guest room is open when I go upstairs to take a shower. Sherry has packed my belongings, simply threw everything onto the bed. On top, there is a note. Simply states, "Get out." I slowly get dressed, gather my belongings, and head downstairs. Silvio is enjoying a beer while gazing out at the street from the porch. Sherry is on the phone in the living room. Bella has lost her SUV. Sherry yells at me to get out, saying that I'm dead to her if I do. I assure her that's okay. The wall behind me breaks when she hurls a cup at it. Still, I go. Uncertain of my destination, I stroll along the street for a while. Arrive at a coffee shop. Purchase something inexpensive. Just pretend to be normal while you sit in the corner and browse Reddit. My phone continues to blow up. Text messages, missed phone calls, even a few direct messages from relatives I didn't really interact with. The majority are merely inquiring as to what transpired. Some have already chosen a side. Once more, Aunt Loretta texts claiming that I'm mentally ill and that Sherry is telling everyone I stole from them. I email her a screen grab of the account access forms. Just so she knows, I spend my entire day eating pizza, strolling around parks, and scrolling through Twitter. No one shows up to start yelling at me, which is partly what I was expecting. I double-check everything, including my bank account. After that, I text a friend to ask if I may spend a few nights at his house. Without question, he responds, "Yes." Later that evening, Bella calls me. For a time, she just breathes on the other end without saying anything. "I always ruin everything that she wishes for," she concludes. "No matter what I do, that Dad will repair this because I was never born." She sends me an SMS with a thumbs down. That's the current situation. My folks are impoverished. Bella is furious. I am viewed as a monster by half of my family. The other half is acting as though they are unfamiliar with us. I'm not sorry. not by any means. That still kind of hurts to see how quickly that happened, even though I suppose I always knew they would turn on me if it meant rescuing themselves. Seeing what happens when the rest of the family gets involved is probably the next step. I have receipts for everything, but Silvio is already trying to twist it in the group conversation. I'll give them a war if they want one. Do I need to share screenshots? I am aware that Reddit adores receipts. Update 2. Well, I suppose the circus officially began the morning after I left my parents' place because my phone kept buzzing. At my friend's house, I had hardly slept at all. Instead, I continued browsing through group conversations and keeping an eye on the notifications. When there is family strife, especially involving someone as vocal as Sherry, it's kind of crazy how quickly people pull out of the woods. The first strange thing that happened was that my cousin Charlotte, who I haven't seen since she moved to the West, texted me a single sentence that read, "Did you really do it?" No background, no. "Hi there." "Yes," I just said. Damn, she hit me back. Then nothing. I assumed that was the beginning, but I was unprepared for how quickly my parents would attempt to fabricate the story. Aunt Loretta was flooding my phone with messages by lunchtime. In that passive-aggressive style that permeates every line. "I'm really let down. Your mom is inconsolable. All we want is to comprehend." She then changes her mind and inquires as to whether there is any way to resolve the conflict amicably for the benefit of the family name. As if it's inconvenient and I should just reverse everything. At first, I ignore her, but she keeps texting. I get a series of queries from Uncle Tony. I can tell Bella is already trying to win people over by posting vague things about snakes and betrayal on her private story. My mother is the one who threw the initial punch both literally and emotionally, so it's humorous to see that she has her Facebook set to devastated when I check my feed. I just click over the comments made by some of my old neighbors who say things like, "Family is everything," and "send prayers." Since Charlotte at least raised a legitimate inquiry, I choose to respond to her even if I don't even have half of these folks in my contacts. I'm honest with her about everything. No sugarcoating. About the pension fund, the SUV, the insurance money, everything. "Holy shit, they actually did that," is her simple response. "Then do you have evidence?" I then email her a couple of screenshots. Just enough to demonstrate that I'm not making this up, no complete documents or anything. The next thing I know, I'm receiving phone calls. I'm not sure, perhaps additional family members. I don't respond. Sherry keeps phoning me, and when I finally answer, she's crying and screaming, alternating between calling me a monster and pleading with me to fix this before it gets worse. I'm not going to argue my point to a group of individuals who only text on holidays. Bella is crying uncontrollably, she says, and Silvio is not himself. By pointing out how hard they worked and how they only wanted the best for both children, she tries to guilt-trip me. I tell her that if she needs money, she can sell the SUV. She ends the call. Later, I'm added to a large family group chat with about 20 individuals, including cousins, uncles, and other people I've never ever met. Silvio's initial messages, saying that he has gone insane and is attempting to ruin our family, is all uppercase. "Don't pay attention," Bella adds her voice. "I'm called a thief," claims that I tricked everyone. As individuals begin to take sides, I first don't even bother to scroll. Half of the conversation ends abruptly. Some begin to wonder what really transpired. One or two, Charlotte deserves special recognition, continue to request evidence. I then post a few screenshots in the chat. Account access from some previous texts in which Sherry blatantly acknowledges exploiting my family's insurance funds. Nothing was altered or phony, only the invoices. "Look, you wanted the truth," I say. "Here it is." A moment of silence. Aunt Loretta then advises against discussing private matters in public. Uncle Tony inquires as to whether it can be undone. Bella begins to bombard people with angry emojis. Sherry exits the conversation. According to Silvio, I am no longer his son. After a while, it's all just noise, to be honest. I grab a sandwich and try to recall the last time I received assistance from any of them. Neither a guilt trip nor a request for money followed that. Charlotte sends me another direct message. She claims to believe me this time, but she cautions me to be careful since Sherry is phoning everyone she knows in an attempt to win sympathy and possibly even legal counsel. I chuckle because my actions were not unlawful. I was granted access by them. Everything was approved by them. They simply never imagined that I would use it. Bella shares another anecdote in the interim, tagging several cousins and mentioning that not all family is blood. I choose to ignore it, but then a cousin I hardly know calls to ask if I can assist him with a side project. Humans are crazy. Saying no, I end the call and turn off the chat. When I return to my friend's house in the evening, he inquires about my well-being. Yes, but don't let my folks in if they show up, I tell him. He chuckles and assures me that he has my back. When I check my phone once more, I discover that Sherry has a lot of missed calls. She alternates between sobbing and making threats. Silvio sends a final text saying, "If I don't fix this, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person I am, depending on the hour." Go for it, I say. When I wake up the following day, I see that everyone is squabbling in the group chat. Right now. I was always ungrateful according to others. Others claim that I was never treated fairly by Sherry and Silvio, a pair who want the whole tale. I don't respond. Simply scroll to observe the mayhem. Text me again, Charlotte. Claims that she will be avoiding contact with everyone for some time. You can't hold her responsible. When Bella eventually calls, I answer in order to end the call. This time she's not even upset, simply exhausted. Claims that I destroyed everything. Claims that she is losing friends. Asks whether I'm content right now. I'm not sorry, but I tell her I'm not happy. She ends the call. Silvio and Sherry are now essentially isolated from half of the family. The house is most likely going up for sale shortly, and Bella's social circle is getting smaller. Sherry texted me one final time promising to forgive everything if I only returned enough to keep their house, so I know they're desperate. I don't respond. To let Charlotte know I'm not succumbing, I give her another screenshot. Seeing people you grew up with flinch when the mask comes off is strange. No one is rushing to their aid. And all those years of pretending that I was the biggest burden on the family. They are now the ones who are being excluded. I'm not finished yet. By no means. They chose the wrong son if they want to fight. Sincerely, I don't think it ever will, but I'll post when all is settled. The last update. I reasoned that perhaps things would calm down once the group chat crashed and half the family blocked one another. But my family doesn't operate that way. The problem with Silvio and Sherry is that they never stop. They intensify their efforts until they are as miserable as everyone else. In all honesty, the past several weeks have been the strangest and most uncomfortable period of my life. And this circus is where I grew up. My first strange experience was receiving sporadic friend requests on Facebook from folks I went to high school with. People I haven't given much thought to in more than a decade. It appears like Sherry is DMing everyone she can think of in an attempt to elicit compassion, or perhaps in the hopes that someone would embarrass me into reconsidering. A guy I hardly remember sends me a message asking if it's true. My own parents were robbed. I simply let him read. I will not defend myself in front of old randos. About 20 minutes away from the old house, Bella has been residing in her friend's apartment. She posts tales as if nothing is wrong, but then she tacks on remarks about her true colors and fake family. Charlotte informed me that Bella attempted to sell the SUV back to the dealer, but no one wanted it because the loan was in Silvio's name and there was no equity left. The classic house is currently for sale. It's also not a sophisticated listing, just a lowball price and some hazy cell phone photos. When I drove by to get the remainder of my belongings, I noticed the sign outside. At first, Sherry refused to let me into the house. She simply folded her arms and stood at the doorway gazing at the floor. I promised to wait on the porch all day, and she finally allowed me in. I suppose she just wanted me gone. The interior appeared to be in ruins. A broken cup from the last battle is still on the floor of the living room. Boxes are all over the place and angry post-its are stuck to cabinets. Take half of the photos down off the walls. Silvio was smoking in the backyard, refused to give me a glance. He simply flicked the barrier with his cigarette. I retrieved my belongings from the guest room, the most of which were already crammed into bags, as if my mother wanted me to know I wasn't welcome. She murmured that I should feel guilty as she followed me around. She should save it, I told her. The bedroom door was banged by her. That evening, Silvio texts me in all uppercase requesting a loan, as if I were now a bank. Claims it's only to help them stand again. I let him read. Sherry gives me another call. She's cold this time, but not sobbing. I'll regret what I did, she says. Claims I'll have nothing in the end. And no one predicts that I will always be alone myself. I tell her that since they collected the insurance money and referred to it as family support when I was 19, I have been living alone. She ends the call. A few days pass. Every day, I receive texts from unidentified family members, some of whom are attempting to mediate the conflict. Some people are simply stating that I should be the larger person. I simply forward screenshots to them. Only Charlotte genuinely understands it. She has also finished all of them. She is therefore avoiding touch for the time being. I think she's real. The finest aspect Silvio and Sherry are now essentially outcasts. No more Facebook remarks from the former neighbors, no more invitations to supper. No one is waiting to assist them in moving. I notice less and fewer mutual friends each time I look at my social media accounts. Bella has been largely shunned by her high school peers. I suppose no one wants to be near someone who constantly posts about hatred and treachery. Sherry makes one final attempt. She calls me and says that if I simply give her anything back, she will forgive me for everything. Claims that if I merely assist them in maintaining the house, I may keep half. I advise her to get rid of the SUV. She yells and accuses me of being callous. She expresses her wish that she had never had me. I let her know that I'm happy to hear the truth at last. She ends the call. After sending me a series of profanity, Silvio stops talking. I don't live like I'm on a beach or anything. I'm just working out and staying at my friend's house. What comes next, I'm not sorry though. Not for a moment. I am aware of their desperation. I am aware of their anger. I am aware that they will never acknowledge their actions, not even to themselves. However, I am no longer their scapegoat. Charlotte informed me that Sherry has been telling everyone that I need treatment because I'm psychologically unstable. I simply give her a thumbs up. Let them speak. I have receipts. I now have a life of my own. At least it's mine, even though it might not be the ideal one. The funniest part, I can't stop thinking about how arrogant everyone looked at the party. Yes, I would accept that. Bella was so ecstatic about her new car that she couldn't even conceal it. The way Silvio and Sherry gave their brief statements, believing they were at last free of their burden. Take a peek at them now. No friends, no money, and no house. Who is going to answer the phone? I'm not going to wait for someone to make this right. Furthermore, I'm not seeking approval from anyone. I fulfilled my obligations. I ensured that no one in that family would ever forget what it's like to be disregarded and helpless. And my life is far from over. By no means. They are free to rebuild without my help if they so want. That's the fallout then. It's not a fairy tale. It's not a pretty bow. Real life with real repercussions. That's what happens, I suppose, when you treat people like problems throughout your life. You wind up with an issue that you are unable to resolve. Anyway, I appreciate you reading. I'm going to log off for a little. Let this be the only thing you learn from this. Sometimes quitting their game is the only way to win. Calm.